Welcome, aspiring web designers and front-end enthusiasts, to the sweet world of front-end styling and responsive design. I'm NJ and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this delightful journey through the art of crafting beautiful bakery websites using CSS. Whether you are an absolute beginner or someone looking to level up their skills, this channel is your one-stop shop for all things front-end. We are going to dive deep into the magical world of CSS, where we will sprinkle some creativity and learn to design stunning websites for bakeries. I'll take you by the hand and break down the fundamentals of CSS, making it as beginner-friendly as a piece of freshly baked bread. From selecting the perfect color palette to creating mouth-watering typography and adding those finishing touches, you will master it all. But wait, there is more. We won't stop at just making pretty websites. We are also going to make sure they look fantastic on all devices, be it a desktop, tablet, or even a smartphone. Responsive design is a piece of cake, and we will savor every bite of it. Get ready for hands-on projects, step-by-step tutorials, and tons of practical tips. You will not only learn the how, but also the why behind every CSS style we apply. By the end of this journey, you will have the skills to create websites that are as scrumptious as the pastries in your favorite bakery. So if you are ready to unleash your creativity, bake beautiful websites, and master the art of front-end styling, hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and let's embark on this delectable adventure together. I can't wait to see your front-end masterpieces. Stay tuned and let's start designing the web one delicious website at a time. Let's get started. Okay, now to expedite this project, I have already created 3 files, that is index.html, script.js, and style.css. This style file as well as the script file both are empty. However, the index.html has some basic skeleton code already defined. And I have already linked up the style file as well as the script file. I have changed the title to Bread House as well. Besides that, this is an empty slate. We are going to define everything together. Now before we start that, I forgot to mention that I have already brought in this folder which is called images, and this contains all the images that we are going to utilize in this project. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that we are going to start working on is this navigation bar. Now if you notice, this navigation bar consists of 3 parts. First one is logo, then we have the actual menu, and then over here to the right we have this search bar, the cart icon, and there is one more icon over here which appears when our viewport shrinks to either tablet or mobile size. Okay, so this is the overall structure that we have to work on. Oh, one more thing. Actually there are more elements such that when I click on this icon, search icon, this search bar appears. And when we click on this cart item appears. So for the time being, we are not going to concern ourselves with these ones. Let's first define this part that we see right now. Okay, so in the body, let's get a header tag. Now we are going to define the entire navigation section within this header section. Now we are going to divide this header section into 3 parts. The first one is going to contain a logo. So we are going to define an anchor tag with the class logo. Let's keep this href empty for the time being. And as far as the contents of this anchor tag is considered, let's bring in the image which is going to act as a logo. So image. Now for the source, let's define, we have images folder, images, then we have this logo.png. So we are bringing in this logo. Let's remove this. Okay. Let's start our server. Now this project is running on port 5501. So this is the project that we are working on, and this is our demo project. So now we have already brought in our image, our logo. Next we have to define our actual menu. For that we are going to use nav element. Let's give it a class name navbar, and over here we are going to define anchor tags. I think we will be needing 7 anchor tags. So okay, this is 1. Let's keep href empty, and as far as the caption, let's give it name home. For the second one, cakes, we are keeping hrefs empty for the time being. Cheesecakes, new arrivals, about, review, and the last one is going to be contact. Now next we have to define a div which is going to contain all the icons. So we have 3 icons in our navigation bar. The first one is for the search icon, so another div for search icon. Let's keep it empty. One more div for cart icon. This is empty as well. The last one is menu icon. All of them are empty. They are supposed to display those icons that we see in our demo project. So we are using font icon to display those images. Therefore, first of all, let's go to the font awesome, bring in the kit link which we have to insert over here, and then we will bring in all the icons that we are interested in. So font awesome. Now I am using this version 5.15.4 because we can only create one free kit, and when I created this free kit, this version was available. So I'm stuck with this version. However, probably that won't be the case with you, so you can move on to the latest version as well. But I'm stuck with this version and I have to choose free icons. Okay, so first of all we have to bring in the kit link. So for that I have to sign in. Okay, so now I have logged in. Let's bring in the kit. So this is the kit that I have created. I am going to copy this link and paste it over here in the head section. Okay, now we are ready to use font awesome icons. Now let's go to the icons. Let's search for search icon. Let's change the version number to 5 something. Okay, we can't use pros because we are using free kit, so let's select this one. And you have different ways to include this kit, include this icon in your project. Since we are using HTML, so we are going to use this one. So when I click on it, this snippet is going to get copied. So copied. Now let's go to the project, and over here in the first div which represents the search icon, let's paste it. Let's check. We can already see this icon over here. Okay, then the next one is cart. Let's select this one, click to copy and insert it in this second div which is cart icon with the class name cart icon. Paste. For the third one, we are interested in menu bar. Let's select this one and paste it over here. Okay, I did I not copy it, or it seems I haven't copied it. So click, paste. Okay, good. Now let's close this font awesome for the time being. Now we have got all the contents that we require in our navigation bar. So let's move on to styling this section. Let's go to style.css. Okay, the first thing that we are going to define over here are generic properties that are going to be applied to all the HTML elements that exist in our HTML file. So to define generic properties that apply to all the elements, we have to create this asterisk block. Now whatever properties you define over here, they are going to be applied to all the elements in our index.html page. So basically we want to remove this margin and padding. And the reason for removing this margin and padding is that many HTML elements have default margin and paddings assigned to them, and we don't know what those margins and paddings are. So in order to be consistent, we want to remove first of all the margins and padding, so that later on we can define our own margins and paddings for only those HTML elements to which we want to actually give margin and paddings. The rest are going to have zero margins and paddings. Then we want to set the box sizing to border box. By setting box sizing to border box, we are basically ensuring whatever padding we assign to any element, that padding is going to be taken out from the total width or height that we have given to that element. For example, let's suppose we have a div to which we have given a width and height of 300 pixels by 300 pixels. That is, we have turned into a square. Now, if we haven't set this box sizing to border box property and then we define the padding to be 20 pixels, what that will do is that it will increase the total width and height of that div from 300 by 300 to 320 by 320. By setting this box sizing, we are letting CSS know to don't add up on that width and height. Rather, take space from that width and height that we have defined and reserve that for padding, so that the end result is the total space occupied by that div is still 300 pixels. So this is what box sizing does by setting box sizing to border box does. Okay, now next we want to remove if any of the elements have any kind of border attached to them or outlines attached to them. So we want to remove those borders and outlines so that if we need, only then we will define our own borders. So border is none. Likewise, outline is also none. So outline is most of the time invisible. Only when the element gets focused, then this outline gets visible. For example, in our form we have input fields. When we click on any input field to type in something, only then that outline gets visible. So we are ensuring this outline is also none, so that later on, if we feel the need, we can define this outline. Then set the text decoration to none as well. This way, if we have defined any anchor elements, which we actually have, like over here, now you can see the underline has been removed. So by setting text decoration to none, this underline has been removed. Now we don't have to worry about removing that underline from rest of the anchor text which we will define in this project. Now next, if you notice, these two menu icons, home and cakes, have been capitalized, the rest are not capitalized. So this is inconsistent because we forgot to capitalize them. So what we are going to do is that we are going to set this text transform property to capitalize. Now we don't have to worry about capitalizing any text over here. So okay, these properties are enough for the time being. Later on, as we progress along in the project, we might have to revisit and add some more properties to this block. But for the time being, that's more than enough. Oh, one more thing. Let's define the font family. So I'm going to go with this Verdana, Geneva, Tahoma, and Sans Serif. So basically, we are listing 4 font families. First of all, your browser will look for this Verdana font on your device where you are opening this project. So if that device has this font installed, the text will be displayed in this font family. If this is not available, the browser will search for this text on your device. If it's available, it will go for this one. Otherwise, it will move on to this one. And this last one, this is universal. It's available to all the projects. In fact, almost all of them are available to all the systems. But in any case, if none of them are available, then we can fall back to this sans serif one. So let's select this one as the font family. Okay, that's it. Now we are almost ready to work on our navigation bar. I said almost because we are going to define all the colors that we are going to use in this project in our variables. This way we don't have to worry about remembering the actual hexadecimal code or RGB values, and every time we have to use one of the colors that we have already used, we have to go back and look for that hex value and then put it back. So if we have variable names assigned to them, then we can simply call those variable names. So that means let's go even higher up and define this root section. So this root section means the root of your document, which is the whole HTML. So whatever variables you define over here, they are going to be present throughout the whole HTML page. Okay, so let's choose main color. Now to define variables in CSS, we have to start them with these double hyphens, otherwise they won't work. So main color is, so this is our main color. So this is the main color that you will be seeing in the rest of the page, and this is the color for the navigation, which is a slight variation of this color. So let's define this nav color. Okay, now let's define the background color. Now let's one more color, which is a shade of black, so I'm giving it the name black. Okay, so this is a bluish black shade basically. Okay, now let's move on to defining some styles for the HTML itself. So over here we are going to set the font size to 62.5%. Well, this is almost a convention, and what it does is that basically on most of the systems the font size is 16 pixels. So by setting it to 62.5%, we are rounding it off to 10 pixels. Now this 10 pixels is easier to visualize and apply mathematical operations on them, such as making it twice, that means 20 pixels, making it thrice, that means 30 pixels, making it half means 5 pixels. So it's easier to visualize what we are thinking in terms of pixels. So this is why you will almost see it in all the projects that initially the font size is set to 62.5 pixels, and later on, keeping this 10 pixel size, you can double it, half is whatever your needs are for the rest of the elements. Then we want the overflow in the x direction to be hidden. We have to define two more properties over here, but I will define it when it makes more sense. But for the time being, let's move on to the body section, and basically we have to give it background color. Since we have defined variables, so we are going to use those variables, and to use variables in the CSS, we have to call this function var, and to this we have these variables to use from. So we are going to go with VG color. Now we have to start defining styles for the heading section. So for that, let's go and look what class name we have given to that header section. We haven't defined any class name, so let's give it a class name header as well. Now we are going to use this header class name to define stylings for this header section. We could have used the header element itself as well, but let's stick with the convention that we are going to follow, that is, we will be using class names to define styles. So now I have opened the browser as well as the code editor side by side, so that we can instantly see the effect of styles that we are defining. First of all, let's give it background color, and again we are going to utilize the variables that we have defined. So since this is navigation bar, so we are going to give it nav color. This is not affected. Okay, I hadn't saved this file. Now as you can see, this much space is being occupied by the header, and all the elements are on different rows, so we have to bring them in single row. So for that, we are going to set display property to flex, and you can see, so this is our logo, then menu items, and over here in the corner you can see that we have these elements over here. Okay, then justify content center and align item center as well. So this menu icon and these icons have all been aligned centrally, because this image occupies too much space, so we can't see that the effect has taken place on this image as well, but it definitely has on this image as well. Now let's put some space between the edges of the browser and our elements. So for that, we are going to give it padding. Padding is 1.5 frame and 7%. Or what you can do is that you can switch these places, 7% and 1.5 frame. So basically we are using two different units to define the paddings. For the top and bottom, this is 7%, and for left and right, this is 1.5 frame. Let's shift back to the original one. Now for the top and bottom, this is 1.5 frame, and for the left and right, this is 7%. Now what is this RAM? So if you remember, we defined the font size to 62.5% in the HTML. So this RAM means root element. So in our case, this root element is this HTML itself. So over here we are saying whatever is the font size of root element, I want 1/2 of that size to be assigned as padding to this element. So if you remember, we said 62.5% means 10 pixels. So 1 RAM is equal to 10 pixels. Now by setting 1.5 RAM, we are saying 15 pixels. So 15 pixels to, top and bottom, and for the left we are giving it 7%. Now this top and bottom paddings are dependent on the font size, whereas this 7% is basically dependent on the actual space occupied by the browser or the device. So depending on the size of the browser, we want 7% of that browser width to be given as a padding to this element as left and right padding. So this way we are more flexible. We are not only adjusting the padding with respect to changing device width, but we are also changing it with respect to the font sizes as well. So this helps in making this web page more responsive. We will be defining explicit properties to make this web page responsive, but defining padding in this way and setting this font size to be 62.5% is already helping us a lot into making this page responsive. Now we have to make sure that when we have lots of elements, such as over here, when we have lots of elements and we are scrolling down, this navigation bar is still fixed over here. It's not scrolling up and it gets invisible. It always remains in the visual area of the browser. So we have to make sure that this happens to this navigation bar as well, and to do that we are going to set its display property to position to fixed. Then once you change the position property to anything, you have to define its dimensions. For example, for the top, that is from where it should start appearing, we are going to set it 0, and left is 0. Setting right to 0 will basically, by setting right to 0, we are saying that it should start at very left end of the browser and it should end at the very right end of the browser. So basically we are giving it 100% width. And this top is saying start at the very top corner of the viewport or our device. So wherever the device starting corners are, this should be placed over there. So this is what position fixed is doing. Okay, so now we have positioned this navigation bar or the header section with respect to the viewport rather than the normal flow of the HTML elements. Now the next thing that we have to do is that whenever we scroll down, this element stays there. It doesn't get scroll up and get invisible. So for that we are going to give it z index to it, and we have to give it some high value. So no element in our HTML page should have this high value. We have to make sure that this one is the highest value. It doesn't matter what value you give to this element, as long as this is the highest value that you assign to any of the rest of the HTML elements. So by setting the z index to the highest value ensures that this one stays on the top. So what I'm going to do is that I am commenting this out for the time being, because at the moment you can't see its importance. Only when we have defined other elements and we have lots of elements and we are scrolling up and down, then you would be able to understand the importance of defining the z index to be 1000. So for the time being I'm keeping it as a comment. When we actually realize its importance, we will come back and uncomment this property. Now we should move on to defining some styles for this logo. So let's go to index. And this logo is actually an image which is inside anchor tag element with the class name logo, which in turn is inside this header element. So we are going to define this relationship. So within this header section we have a class name or an element with the class name logo, and that element has a child which is an image element. So we are interested in decreasing its height. So when we decrease its height, the width will automatically get adjusted. So for the height, let's give it 60 pixels, and 60 pixels means 6 rem. Okay, so this is the size. Now next we have to turn into a circle. So for that we are going to set border radius to be 50%. Now as you can see, there is no space between these elements, the logo and these icons. So put some space between them evenly. We have to redefine one property in the header section. Justify content, we are saying put everything in the center. So now we are going to say put space between all the elements. So there are in total 3 elements. So now some space has been put between them. So as the size increases, the space will also increase. So now as you can see, by setting display property to flex, we have already made it responsive. Now we have to define some properties for these elements. So header, and within this header we have this nav element with the class name navbar, and there we have these anchor elements. So header dot navbar, and then this anchor, we are setting its color to be white. Let's increase font size to 1.6 rem, and we want some space between these elements as well. So margin, we don't have to give any top and bottom margin because those margins are already being given, because its parent element, that is the header, has been set the display property flex and align item center as well. So we don't want any more margin as far as the top and bottom is concerned. However, for the left and right, we want to put some space between each of these menu items. So let's make it 1 rem, that means 10 pixels. Now in order to see the effect, it didn't have any effect because I put 2 dots over here. Header, nav bar, so many mistakes. Okay. Now you can see the size has been increased and there is some space between them as well. Now we have to define what shall happen when we hover over these elements. So when we hover over them, let's see what happens. Okay, maybe this is too much font size. So font size, let's make it 1.3 rem. I've made it. Okay. Now as far as hover effect is concerned, this is the hover effect. So when we hover over it, we want the color to change. Then we want this top and bottom borders to appear, and we want to see them appearing as an animation. So let's work on that. Copy, paste, and since we are defining hover over for the anchor, so colon hover. This hover is a pseudo class, and over here we are defining properties. First of all, we want the color to change, and we want it to get this color black, and we want border top and bottom to appear. So border top, let's give it 3 pixels, so 0.3 rem solid. And as far as the color is concerned, let's go with this black color as well, and we want the same one for the bottom as well. Now we want some space between these borders and the element itself, so we have to define padding top 0.5 rem, that means 5 pixels, and let's copy paste and change it to padding bottom. Okay, now let's see its effect. Refresh. So even though everything is happening, but we don't see this transitioning effect, the animation, smooth animation. That's because we haven't defined a very important property which is called transition. So when we want any of the properties to change its value and we want it to happen slowly and gradually like an animation style, then we have to set another property called transition. And over here we have to define what kind of transitioning we are applying. So basically we are changing values for these 6 elements. We are changing the color, we are changing border top from none to this, we are changing border bottom from none to this, and we are changing padding top and padding bottom. Since there are 6 properties, so rather than mentioning all of the properties over here, I am going to put all over here. So this is going to cover all the values or all the properties which change value, that means which are undergoing transitioning. Then next property is how long I want it to take for each transition to take effect. So I want it to take 0.5 seconds, that is half a second. And next, what kind of style we want to transition in. So let's give an ease in. Okay, so now let's hover over them and you can see this transitioning effect. Now since we will be defining this transition property to many other HTML elements as well, so I'm going to cut this property from here and I'm going to place it into generic block, so that for rest of the elements I don't have to define this transition property again and again. Okay, next what shall we do? We have to style these icons, and the first thing that we have to do is that we have to bring them in a single row as well. Within this header element, there we have a div with the class name icons, and there we have respective divs with the class name search icon, cart icon, and menu icon. So first of all, bring them all in a single row. So header, there we have one of its child with the class name icons, and for there we have to set its display property to flex. Now you can see the elements have been brought in into a single row. Now we can set the justify content to space between to bring the gap between them, or we can define margins and paddings individually for them. So let's take that approach. Let's target individual divs within the icons. Let's change the color to white. Cursor to pointer. Font size Let's make them 2.5 or 2.2 RAM, that is 22 pixels, and margin left 2 RAM. So this margin left 2 RAM will place some space after each element. Okay, so this is how they look. Now font size is not increased because of this dot. Okay, that's better. Maybe that's way too big. Let's make it 2 RAM. I think we should make them 1.8. Yeah, that's better. Now we have to make this disappear, because this will only appear when the screen size is smaller. That is, when we are either viewing this page on the tablet or on mobile. Okay, so header icons, and the class name given to that one was menu icon. Dot menu icon, set its display to none. Good. Now we have to define the hover effect for these elements. So since we have to define hover effect for all of them, copy, paste it over here, attach hover pseudo element. We are simply changing the color to this black. Okay, good. Next we have to define this search box. When we click on this search icon, this search box appears. So for that, let's go to our index.html and define its structure first. So after this div, which contains all the icons, let's define this another div with the class name search form, and there let's define an input field with the type search, name let's give it search, ID search box. Now let's define a label for search box. So we have to make sure that the value that provide over here matches exactly the ID of this input field. This way, even if we click on this label, the focus will automatically go to this input box. Now to this search box, let's give it another property or attribute, placeholder search here. Okay, now as for now, let's go to the label again. Let's give it a class, and the class that we want to give is this one. This will bring in the search icon from the font awesome. Okay, there it is. Now we have to define the rest of the styling in our CSS. The first thing that we have to do is that we have to bring the search box over here, like this one. This is slightly below this navigation bar. So to do that, since this search icon is inside the header, so header, and the class name that we have given is search form. This is the top div in which we have defined this input field and label. So we are going to give it position absolute. Now since this search form has a parent, which is this header, that parent has a position defined fixed. So now setting this position absolute will look at this header section. Now the search form will try to position itself with respect to this header section, because header is the parent, because header is the first element that has its position set to fixed, that is any value other than the default value. Default value of each element is position static. If header didn't have set position fixed, then this absolute would have looked at the browser itself as its parent. So now since this header has the position set to fixed, so the search form will look at this header as its parent and will try to position itself with respect to that parent. So considering that as a parent, now we have to define where should this search form be placed. So we want this search form to be placed slightly lower than where this header section ends. So for this search form, the ending part of header is 100%. So if you say top to 100%, so this means start exactly where header section ends. Now since we want to put some space between header and this search box, so we are going to set it to 115. No effect. I'm sure I've made mistake in giving it the class name. Correct spelling. This is search form. Oh, this is search from. Make it form. Okay, now you can see it's over here. Since we have only set the top, so it is placing itself over here. And since this is the padding area, so that's why this search box has not moved over here. Just to give you a clue, let's make it back into 100%. Now you can see it has moved exactly where the header section ends. So let's turn it back to 15. Now for the left and right, so let's set the right property to 7%. That is, from the right side move 7% to the left. So now it has moved from the right side, it has kept 7%. Now we have to give it fixed width as well. So width, let's give it 50 rem. Okay, so this is how it looks. You must be thinking we wanted it to be 7% from the right and width should be 50%, but it seems to have only moved into the center. So just to confirm that the whole width has increased, let's give it some border. I'm giving it border solid 1 pixel black, and now you can see it has occupied the 50% of the width. But since all the elements are justified to the left by default, so we thought that the search box has moved to this place. But let's keep this border for the time being. Now let's define some height, 5 rem. Okay, let's decrease its width from 50 to 30, 35, and height make it 4 rem. Yeah, that's better. Now let's move to the input field which is inside this search form. So copy, paste, and there we have an input field. We have to make sure this input field occupies whole width of its parent as well as the height. Therefore width 100%, so whatever width it inherits from the parent, likewise the height 100%. So now this is occupying the whole width and height. Just to be extra conscious, let's give it background color of white. Okay, now we have to give it some padding so that there is space between the edges and this placeholder, and we have to increase the font size as well. But first let's change the spelling. It's supposed to be H over here, not G. Placeholder is search here. Okay, so padding, let's give it 1 rem all around. Since at the top we have defined the text transform to capitalize, over here we want to negate that property, so explicitly define text transform to none. Otherwise whatever text we type, it will automatically turn into capitalized letters. Let's give it font size, let's make it 1.2 rems or 3 rems is enough, and then change the font color to the black that we have defined. Okay, now whatever you type is in the color that we have defined. Okay, now we have to work on this icon such that it goes over here. So to bring it over here, first of all we have to make sure this comes in the same line in which we have this input field. So that means for it parent we have to set the display property to flex. So let's go to the parent, which is this. This is the parent, so display flex. Let's set align items to center as well. Now let's go to the, let's copy, paste it over here and define some properties for the label. But first let's check it if it has already moved in a same row. Yes. Okay, so we have to give this one background color white as well. So background color white, the color itself is going to be black. Now instead of defining this background color for the children, let's remove it and cut it and put it with the parent. Let's move this text transform property to its parent as well so that it applies to both of its children. Okay, background color is white. Okay, good. Now we have to bring this icon slightly towards the left so that there is space between the edge and this icon. And we have to increase the font size as well. Let's also make it 1.3 rem. Padding to the right, let's make it 1.3 rem as well. Okay, that's better. Now let's remove this border and probably decrease the height as well. So height, let's make it 3.5 rem and let's remove this border. Okay, that's better, but it doesn't seem to have affected the text transform. None doesn't seem to have taken effect. Why? Let's move it back to its children. Okay. Okay, so text transform was not taking effect for its children if we define it with the parent. For this label, let's define the cursor to be pointer, and now when we hover over that icon, so we have to define the hover property for this label. We want the color to change to this main color. Okay, good. Now basically we want the search icon to be invisible. Only when we click on this icon, then we want the search icon to appear, and then again if we click on the search icon or some other icon, then this search icon should disappear. So to define this logic, first of all, let's set its right property for the parent, which was this search form, and from the 7% to minus 100%. Now you saw the search icon disappear. So basically it's still there, but it's not in the visible space. Since we have set the overflow X to be hidden, so it's somewhere outside our browser space. It's there, but it's not visible. So when we click on this search icon, we want that search icon to be brought back to that original position. So for that, we are going to define a class, another class for this search form. So copy and paste it over here, and the class name is active. So when this active class is attached with this header search form, then the right will change its value from minus 100% back to 7%. So now we have to define a click event for this search icon such that when we click on it, this search box appears over here. So that means we have to go to our script file. Now first of all, we need to get access to the search icon. So this is the div. We have to get a reference to it. So const search icon document query selector. We are interested in a class name search icon. Now we have to define an event listener for this. So search icon dot add event listener. Let's define it through an arrow function. So the event we are interested in is click. Now before we define the logic over here for this arrow function, we need to access the search form itself. So copy paste and search form. So now within the body we are saying search form dot class list dot add class name called active. Refresh. Now let's click on it. Nothing happened. F12. Failed to execute event listener on 2 arguments required but only 1 present. Okay. So the event is click. It's a separate argument, and to the body let's put empty brackets because we are not passing any parameter to this arrow function. Okay. Click. Now it appeared. Okay. Now since we haven't yet defined any logic how to make it disappear, so it won't disappear, we have to refresh it. Click and it appears, but now it doesn't disappear until we define how to make it disappear. It's going to stay there and we have to keep refreshing the page. Okay, so that was the search part so far. We will define the further logic that will make it disappear as well, but for that we need to have other elements and other logic defined as well. So for the time being we have to live with it. Okay, now let's move on to when we click on this icon, this list of cart items should appear. So let's work on that. So let's go to our index.html. So that first we have some structure defined there. Now after this div where this search form ends, let's define another div with the class name cart items container and within this div we have to define multiple divs, each of which will represent one element in the cart. So let's define the structure for first element and then we will copy paste it. So each div will have a class named cart item, and within this cart item we have a spawn element. This will have a class, and this class will represent a font item element, which will be basically cross sign. So the class for that cross sign is FAS FA dash times. There it has already appeared. Okay. Then we have an image. Let's bring in some image. Let's bring in brownies. Okay. Now then we have another div with the class name content, and within the content we have h1, which represents the name of the item that we have put in the cart. So I have put in brownie, so excuse the spelling, I'm not sure if this spelling is correct. Then we have to have another div with the class name price, and let's give it 50 point, let's make it 49.99. okay, so this is the heading. Let's make it h3. okay, that's better. So cross, image, and these are the contents. Now we have to copy paste this structure. So this is cart item, this is where it starts and this is where it ends. Copy, space, paste. 4 items are enough. Third item, second item, first item. Since these contents are inside the header and I have made header position fixed, so that's why it's not moving, even though now the header is way too big. But because of being position fixed, we can't even see the scroll bar over here. It's not supposed to move. Okay, now let's go to the style part and to fix this. Now before we define any styling over here, let's go to the demo project and see how our cart items appear. So it starts exactly where our header section ends. So header, cart items, container. We have to set it position absolute, and since this one has the parent header as well, so with respect to the header, let's set the top to be 100%. You can see this has moved down. Okay, let's width of 35 frame. Background color is white. For the height, let's temporarily give it 80% of the viewport height. Let's give it right as well. Let's give it 0 so that it goes to the right edge. Okay, since we are still not able to see the rest of the contents because it's still inside this header section and it's fixed in size, so that means we have to shrink the image size so that we can see how much height it's occupying at the moment. Okay, so let's directly move on to header, cart items, container, and there we have cart item, which is an image as its child. So first of all, let's give it height. Let's give it 6 frame as well. Yeah, that's better. Now let's give it some border to see where it ends, because currently I'm not able to see. Solid 1 pixel black. Okay, so okay, good. So it's occupying the remaining height. Okay, good. Now we have to define the rest of the properties. However, this width seems to be too much. But first, let's define the rest of the properties, and then we will see how much width should be given. So now we are targeting individual cart items. So individual cart item Now we have to set its display to flex so that all its content should come in a single row. Okay, that's better. Again, the width is too much, I think. So let's make it 28 frames. Okay, that's better. Now bring them all in the center, so align item center, and let's give margin top and bottom 2 rem, left and right 0. That's better. But for the parent, let's define some padding. Let's make it 0.8 rem. Okay, now let's target this cross. So basically we want to move it over here. So to make it easier to understand, let's temporarily give this each cart item a border so that we are able to see where does each cart item starts and where it ends. Solid 1 pixel, let's give it black. Okay, so now basically we want to bring it over here in this top right corner of this box. So that means we have to position this X with respect to this box. So in order to position this with respect to this box, we have to make sure that this box is the first parent that this X encounters. To make this box the first or immediate parent of this X with respect to which it will position itself, we have to set the property from static, which is the default property, therefore not defined. We have to set it to something else. Since we actually don't want to do any changes to the cart item itself, so the surfaced value to define its position is relative. So relative means with respect to where it should actually be, and we are saying it's relative to its actual position, but since we haven't defined top, left, right or bottom properties, so it will be placed on its original position. But now having this cart item, the property position set to relative, now for the span that we have defined over here, where is it, this one, which contains this cross sign, we can target it. So let's copy this part, paste it, and within this cart item we have an span. So now we are setting this position to absolute. Now setting this position absolute, it will start looking for an immediate parent against which it will try to position itself. And now since we have set the position property of cart item relative, each cross will find this whole cart item, the parent container, to be its immediate parent. So now it will try to position itself with respect to this box. So now we have to say top, let's make it 0 for the time being, and right, let's give it 2%. That means from the right side it should be moved 2% to the left. Okay, so now it has been placed over here, so let's bring it slightly down. So the top as well 2%, and the right, let's make it 4%, 5%. Okay, let's change the font size to 2 rem. Color is black. Cursor is pointer. Okay, that's better. Now let's define hover property for this. So copy, paste, hover. Now we want only the color to change to main color. Good. Shall we make it red? Yeah, I think red is more appropriate. Okay, let's increase the size a little bit. So where is image height? Let's make it 7 rem. Okay, that's better. Now we have to target these two items, the title and the price, but we need some gap as well between each of these elements. So let's go to the cart item, the parent, this one where we are defining display flex. Over here let's define gap to be 1 rem. Okay, that's better. Now let's target this h3 and the span with the class name price. So let's copy this part up to cart item. Then within this cart item we have a class name content, and then let's target h3. Font size is 1.6 rem. Color is black. Heading bottom 0.5 rem. Okay, now let's target this price. So let's copy this part, paste, and now change it to price class. Font size, let's make it 1.2 rem. Delete padding, and for the color we need main color. Okay, that's better. Maybe instead of defining the height, let's define the width so that it looks more like our demo project. Let's change it to width 7 rem. Okay, that's better. Maybe we should decrease the width of the container as well. So container, we have given it width, I think 35. Okay, so this is the container. The width is okay, let's make it 25. Okay, that's better. And maybe this text is also too big. So let's go to H3. Let's make it 1.5. Yeah, that's better. Now let me go and change the contents of these cart items. Okay, we should decrease the size of H3, it's too big. So where is H3? 1.2 rem. Then we have to decrease the price to 1 rem as well. Yeah, that's better. And we should also increase some width, because otherwise there is no space between this cross and the title. So let's change the width back to 28. Yeah, that's better. Okay, now we have to do the same that we did for this search icon, such that when we click on this cart icon, this drop down list appears, otherwise it's invisible. So first step is to make this container invisible by setting its right to -100%. Then let's copy, paste, and define another class for it, active, and over here set the right property to 0. Now let's go to the script.js, and basically we have to copy everything, paste. Let's go up and look for the class name. This is cart icon. So cart icon, and the class name that we gave to the cart menu is cart items container. So this one is going to be cart items container space, and over here container. Okay, now Control C, replace this with this one, cart icon add event listener click, and copy, paste. What happened? Okay, since I removed the % sign, so it turned into pixels properly, probably. Save it. Okay, good. Now let's click. Okay. Now since we have two event listeners associated with them, so now we have to define the logic such that when we click on this one, if this cart menu is visible, it should disappear and only search icon appears. And when we click on this cart icon, only this menu appears, and if this search icon is visible, it should disappear. So for that, let's go back to a script, and over here we are copy this part from the search icon, paste it over here to this cart icon, and over here remove this active class. And likewise copy this cart icon container and paste it in this event listener associated with search icon, and over here we are saying remove it. Okay, let's refresh. Now let's click on this search icon. Now this search box is visible. Now click on cart icon. So now the search icon disappeared and the cart icon appeared. Now let's click on search icon again. The cart items disappear and search icon appeared. So this part is also working.